Class is a little smaller, but that's probably because David Lowe is doing a class on New Testament survey, and Glenn's starting a class. What's this class on? Do you have a bulletin? I need to say thank you to him. Remind me. All right. Really glad you're here for this very awkward class that we're about to have. Gary is teaching us today all about that. I don't even want to say the word. Yes, Diane's back. Thank goodness. This is going to be great now. I was really missing you last week. I really was. Really was. Did A&M win this week? Oh, who did they play? Jib Jab State? But they won. That was key.
So technically, you really don't want me to.
Why?
You're going to start off like that.
Hey, I'm just saying nothing else. I'm not saying anything else. I'm going to just stop there. All right. Didn't watch actually a lot of football yesterday. I stayed pretty busy outside. All right. Okay, we're going to get right into it. And if we end a little earlier because I don't want to talk about it anymore, that's great. We'll do that. Why are you laughing? It's too early. Oh, inside. Okay. All right, guys, we are chapter 20. We're in session 12 in your question books. If you guys are going through your questions as a family, that is where we are. But we're on chapter 20. And honestly, when I listened, and I do more listening, I like listening to him on audio. And so if I'm traveling or if I'm outside cutting grass or something, I just listen as I go. And when I heard it and then I went back and read this chapter, it's not me. So did you guys connect with chapter 20? And that was the whole thing. On the chairs, it's R, C-H-A-I-R, and that is relationship, is what he's talking about. Man wants relationship. But do you remember how he describes relationship in the book, in that chapter? Anybody? Chapter 20. Shoulder to shoulder. Yeah, he talked about shoulder to shoulder. Do you remember one of the examples that he uses?
I remember the one that he used right off the bat that I'm like, it just didn't seem right to me. The one he used right off the bat was where, the husband asked the wife to come out wherever he was. I can't remember exactly what.
Hunting.
And then
Was it? It wasn't the hunting one. What was the first one?
No, it was in the garage or something. But no. He just said she was in the kitchen doing stuff in the kitchen, which that's a whole other story. But anyway, we won't talk about that. Right.
Don't make eye contact with her, man. Just walk away. Just keep going.
Anyway, he kept calling her in there, but it was just like she finally went in there.
Oh.
He wanted her in there, and then she started talking to him, and he said, no, don't talk.
Just be here.
Come in here with me. And I'm like, all the other examples, he said the wife initiated going out to wherever he was, and she herself initiated that. The first one, he's the one that called her out, and then he said, no, don't talk. And I'm like, well, that's not really right.
I know what you're saying. So I think he was watching TV or doing something, and she was up and doing something else, and he just wanted her in the room with her, and so she came into the room and then started talking, and he was like, please stop talking, The other example that he used was the hunting example, that she got up, crack of dawn, went out with him, got into the blind, set up the blind, got into the blind. Of course, when you're hunting, this is crazy, but you got to be quiet. I don't know if you knew this or not. I actually scared deer away by accident one time. The gentleman who was hunting with me was not happy. But you have this moment of, he gets out of the stand, they take down the stand, they're walking away, and he says, "That was amazing." And I'm reading and then listening, I'm going, "What was?" You know? So, okay, so I want to know, guys, I want to start with you today. Do you want your wives to just be there with you? Is that a common thing? He's obviously talking about it. He has more education, I think, than anybody in here that I know of, right? Because this is what he does. He has, I believe, well, he's a doctor, right? Yeah, and this is what he does. And so he knows a little bit more than us, but is that across the board? Do you guys feel that you just want her there? She doesn't have to say anything? You don't have to raise your hand. That's the first time I've ever seen you raise your hand, Jay.
Yes, I'm a very quality time kind of person, so I want to spend time with people, and I want to spend time with her, so it's very important to her that she prioritizes her time as, the time we spend together.
Okay, but let me ask you this. I'm with you. I want to spend time together with my wife. I mean, we love our time together. We love our time together. But what I'm wondering is the way that he was talking in the book, it was more like, I'm doing what I want to do, and I just want you there. So do you guys feel that? Do you want that, Monk?
So we actually have some language for this.
Okay.
Presence versus company. And there are times that I just want my wife's presence.
Okay.
I just want her there by my side.
Okay.
Not necessarily, she'll be on her phone, I'll be doing whatever I'm doing.
Yeah?
No real connection there other than just her physical presence there.
Why?
I can't explain.
I can't either. Somebody else want to jump in? I'm not going against what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I just want to know, the whole concept of just being there.
I don't know, when we take trips together,
Uh-huh.
when Duncan was playing tennis, we would have to drive down. It's a 4-hour drive, and so we would talk
4?
for part of it, but for maybe 2 hours, it's just me driving, her sitting there, and we would get there, and we're like, that was a really big drive. And it wasn't because it was filled with whatever, but it was just, we were spending time together.
Okay, so just that time, and you felt that connection, and you don't need to fill the space with something. You're okay with being just wanting to be together. So you like that. Did you like it? Okay. Why were you laughing?
Well, you were
The
talking about,
Burgoon driving mode.
and when we're in the car, I don't talk much.
Really? Okay.
She calls it the Burgoon driving mode, but my sister does it.
The Burgoon driving mode, when I'm behind the wheel, there's a curtain.
Hours.
Really? It's kind of, there's a joke, we have a really close friends back in Bowie, and when they're on a really long trip, I guess he's in the Burgoon driving mode as well. Scott will he's already a quiet guy, and he's just be driving, and Sally will get a text message from Sarah, "I wish I married the funny one," and so, and it's a funny joke. It's not serious at all, but I'm a little different. We're a little different in the car. We talk quite a bit. And when Sally starts singing, I turn the radio on, and things like that happen. But what else? Anybody else want to jump in on that?
It's nice when it gets to the point that you can do that and it's not awkward at all.
Okay, yeah.
You're comfortable with that part of it too.
Yeah, so you don't have to feel that space. You just feel comfortable being with that person.
Well, I can't wait for him to say something. But, he used to get mad that I would sleep the whole way because I just wanted to wake up and be there. We drive a lot. And so now I'm awake a lot, but we still don't talk. And I think that's fine. There's in your country, the movie that, our romance movie from when we dated and stuff. And this old man gets up and he's like, the problem with today is that people just use too many words or talk too much. And I'm like, I think that's true. People just talk too much.
Okay, so what is there with, obviously he's bringing this up on the guy side because we need it, and I get that, but so how do you, I know okay, I'm trying to have so many thoughts in the head right now, it's fine. I know that there's times when I want my wife there. Man, we used to play a church softball. Sally doesn't play coordination. she's amazing, and so she hasn't. Yeah, it's fine. I love you so much. But I wanted her there, to be there, and I wanted that. But that's how I kind of wanted. If I'm out in the shop doing some woodworking, I don't want Sally sitting there watching me because I'm trying to concentrate, But it felt like that's what he was trying to talk about in this, like just to be there. Why is that important for guys? And ladies, is it important for you or is that weird for you to just spend time with him? In the car, you're kind of a captive person, but I'm talking about just life. Do we take that time of not getting things done and just spending that time together?
I want John whenever,
No, go ahead.
it's like when you go to a restaurant and a younger couple that is there dating, they're talking, trying to find out more about each other and sharing everything. And you look at a married couple and they're just sitting there not saying a word, just enjoying their meal. And part of that is you have gotten to know them so well.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways. And also then if you take another couple with you, you all end up talking more and learning more about each other because somehow that brings out the conversation than just the two of you sometimes.
Yeah, okay. I like it.
I wonder if part of it is the woman taking an interest in what the man is interested in. I mean, no, I don't want to go out to the garage and sit and watch you woodwork, but I do want to go out and see, the finished product. Do I need to bring you something to drink? And take an interest in that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm doing something, I don't necessarily want you sitting and watching me because if I mess up, I don't want you to see that I'm
Okay, yeah.
messing up. But just having an interest in what the other person is doing, I think is important to me anyway.
Okay, so we're showing interest in each other. Okay.
Depends on how old your kids are. Like, because if we're gonna sit and actually be together and not have our kids, I wanna talk to him because I don't get the chance when our kids are around. Or if I'm doing something by myself, I want him to watch the kids so they don't come bother my art.
You have to kick them off. Yeah, yeah.
So, does it depend on, how
Sure.
old your kids are? Because, when your kids are grown and they're not like, hey, Mom, what are you doing every 5 seconds?
Yeah, and I think you're making a really good point because there's different times in our lives that when you have younger kids, like this one right over here, 6 months old, and last night was a rough night. Mommy's really happy today. There's different times in your life when you have to take care of those things we call children. That's right. But this is what I would also tell young families. I tell this to a lot of young families a lot of the time. Find that a few moments every single day that you're just alone together. Late at night is not probably the best because you're both exhausted. You're exhausted from those little things we call kids, and you're exhausted from work, and then you're coming home and trying to take care of everything. You could be running different places. It might be a morning. Get up a little earlier. I know that sounds horrible, but to spend that time. Or when you come home, throw kids in a room, lock them in there, do whatever, throw some snacks under the door, whatever you got to do, but then have a couple of those minutes to do that time together. I think it is important for that. But you'll figure it out as time goes on. But it is a whole lot easier now that, Jolie's just turned 22. I mean, she feeds herself, walks around, and does everything she needs to do. And so we definitely try to spend that time.
Well, I think it might be that there is a typical male friendship,
Mm-hmm.
there's a typical female friendship.
Yeah.
Sometimes within the marriage, the man has to go into like the female mode of friendship. But
Yeah.
to be fair, sometimes the woman has to go into the male mode of friendship.
Does he not use the example in this chapter that they did an experiment, right? They had these 2 chairs in a room, and they put a couple of women who were friends in there. Is this chapter? Okay. They put a couple of women who were friends, and what do you think they did with those chairs? They turned them towards each other and leaned in and just got into that conversation. They did the same thing with men. The 2 chairs were there, side by side. The men went in there, they sat down, and they barely looked at one another. But they came out of the room saying, awesome time. Really connected. And you're like, what just happened, right? Sometimes it's not the words, it's that time. And a lot of times we believe that we don't have those deeper conversations as man to another man, but I promise you there is. Maybe not as many words, but there are people in my life that they hold me accountable, I hold them accountable, but there's just an incredible relationship that I can use very few words, but I can come away feeling very full from that relationship. And we're not going to be, it might not be like Sarah and Sally that I was telling you about that would just turn to each other and just keep talking. Scott and I don't do that, but we just want to be side by side, shoulder to shoulder, and there's that part of that relationship that we have, and it's incredible. It just demonstrates to us the pink and the blue, right? How we communicate, what we need. But it's incredible when he does go through this, I didn't just realize that, man, we actually just need to be beside you, and then just to spend that time. It's important that we do that. So I think like what Sally said earlier too, being in there may contribute to what we're doing and what we're interested in, that you can be a part of that as well. Anybody want to say anything else about that?
John, what do you think this has done to that?
The cell phone? Can I go back to, I'm sorry, go ahead. I cut you off.
I
Go.
was just going to say, there's been times when Mary Lynn and I have gone to somewhere to eat, and I don't think we've ever actually done this, but I've seen this several times. Actually, even before phones, but with phones mainly, we'll see another couple, usually it's an older couple too, that they're both on their phones, not talking, not even looking at each other, not communicating. I've seen times when they both have books. They take their books, and when they're eating, before their food gets there, they're reading. I don't see that as often anymore, but
Yeah.
I don't know how phones have affected. I'm not sure that really counts as being what he's talking about here, where you're
Yes.
connecting when you're doing that.
What is incredible about that, it's multiple generations. It's not the younger generation. I've done the same thing when Sally and I have been out to dinner. We look around the restaurant and it's older generation sitting there on their phones and they're not looking at each other. I think the cell phone can put a big dampener in between that relationship for sure. All the research that I've been reading and looking at when it comes to this kind of thing, everybody says before you go out for a meal with your family or maybe with your husband or your wife, you take one phone, everybody else stays at home. There's no reason to have your phone. If you need to call somebody, hold on, ease it back.
We're that couple that are on our phones, especially if it's during sports season. So we're communicating about it. If we're getting like commits or something, I mean, we'll go out to eat specifically to be on, and he's like, did you see this? And I'm like, okay, did you see that? Did you get that one? Did he say yes? And so that's our entertainment. So we know we've been judged outside of that. But sometimes it's important. Or too. So.
Ignore everything she just said. Listen to my voice.
There's other reasons.
There are other reasons, but
I wonder if the people that are sitting there on their phones across from each other, would they even have a conversation if they didn't have their phones? Are they the type that would have just sat there and not said anything anyway?
I don't-
I've been
yeah.
there, I've been on my phone, but we're talking about things that I'm seeing.
you don't allow Jolie to have her phone.
No, but if it's something important.
If something important is going on, okay. Okay.
No, for the most part, we don't. I'm just saying, I think the phone just shines a spotlight on what your personality is anyway. So
Okay.
if you're ignoring everybody else in the room, not your phone, you probably would have been doing that anyway if you didn't have your phone.
I think the phone is an excuse. It's an excuse for the other person to blame the other, your spouse or being preoccupied when they don't, I mean, if you're having issues anyways or you're judging people on the outside, I mean, people aren't like, I mean, you've got to engage with your other spouse and you've got to put the time in, you've got to ask your spouse what, I mean, you've just got to put the time in, and I just think the phone is an excuse. Otherwise, you're going to have something else to do, like
Yeah.
not go out to eat, not, I mean,
Yeah.
the phone is just an excuse.
Yeah.
I'm not like advocating for the phone. It does hinder, but if you're not willing to put the time in for your spouse, you're going to find something else to do anyway.
Right.
Figure out some phone.
Yeah, so let me go back to the research that I found, and maybe you can use the phone as a talkative point, sure, but research, and this is now over decades of research, is saying that it has become a hindrance between us. Communication has been lowered. We're not talking to one another as much. We don't know how to create relationships as we once did through the talking with one another. If I have a cell phone out, that takes priority. If a message comes in, a Facebook like, whatever that is, whatever you follow, you're going to pick it up, you're going to look, right? If it goes off, I'm looking no matter what. So that means you're not important. What just happened on my phone is more important than this, right? And hold on, let me finish. I'm going to pin it. I just want to back up, all right? Just hold on. So what they say, and let me go back to what these articles I was reading, that if you take one phone, there's a way that you can communicate with others, but you don't even have it on the table. You put it in your purse, and you're forcing that communication. And yes, silence can be good. I guess read the menu many times. I don't know, but also taking that time to communicate is extremely important. Go ahead, please.
I think even beyond just possessing the phone in the presence of your spouse,
Mhm.
is that freedom to say, who are you talking to?
Sure.
Who or what is more important than me? And if that response is defensive and anger,
That's a tough way to go. Yeah, I hear you. Like, what is that? That's tough. That's a tough thing. Yeah.
Have you read The Anxious Generation?
Have I read it? No, I have not. Okay, that look was read that. Is it an article or a book?
It's a whole book.
A whole book.
Cell phones and how.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't agree with everything he says. but
Right.
That is a really eye-opener.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's so being with one another. What's interesting is this isn't on the girls' side. When I was thinking, I'm going to come to you in just a second, Dallas. This isn't on the women's side. I thought it would be. When I was listening to it, I thought, why does men want that? And I didn't realize that it is an actual need that I need just to be beside my wife and to be with my wife. Okay, go ahead, Dallas.
I really like it. We'll be driving and we're not talking, we'll still reach over and hold it
Yeah,
again. And that's, he's saying a whole lot without saying anything.
that should be on a T-shirt. That's good. That's good.
I think just simple things like that.
Yeah. All right, we got to switch gears. I postponed this long enough. I'm going to get a cup of coffee. All right, there's a song about it, but we're not going to sing it, but we're going to talk about it. Chapter 21 is about, if I'm nervous about it, what do you think it's about? Somebody say the word so we can get it out of the room.
Sexuality.
Sexuality. Thank you, Jay. Here we go. Number 7 in the question in here. It's one of those. I'm going to read this one, and I want you to tell me what your response. This is 168 in your workbook. Which of the following statements from this section speak most directly to you about and your marriage? Number 1, or A. If there ever were an issue that wasn't really the issue, it is sex. Number 2, or B. Sex for him and affection for you is a two-way street. C. Sex is symbolic of his deeper need, respect. Which one of those speak to you the most directly? Oh, now you get quiet? Hey, the longer you take, the less, I can get out of here. Huh? Oh, Fort Worth, you're killing me. If there were ever an issue that really isn't the issue, it is sex. That's the first one. Sex for him and affection for you is a two-way street. Sex is a symbol of his deeper need, respect. Okay.
Is that like A, B, or C?
Yes. Which of the following statements from this section speak most directly to you and your marriage? That's the question. I'm actually okay. Can I get that comfy chair? Who's in the gray one? I want that one. The first one? Okay. Monk says A. First one to speak. Is there a reason?
Just, in regards to sex, it's rarely ever about the sex.
Okay, yeah, when it's rarely about the sex itself. So you want to keep going? I'm just repeating so that everybody can hear on camera. Andrew Monk speaking. Oh, you're done? Yeah, if you only heard it was on camera, you just stop it there, didn't you?
No, it's, while sex is a need, it's not really the core.
Yeah.
There is something in the connection of that, and I think that's got to be,
Mm-hmm.
there's something in the connection, in the intimacy within sex. But if ever there's an issue with sex within a relationship, it's rarely actually about sex.
Yeah, he says something in the chapter that really just stopped me. He goes, Satan is doing everything he can to get you in bed with another person, before you're married. And he's doing everything he can to keep you out of the bed within your marriage. Do you guys remember that when he wrote that? It's that's powerful, isn't it? Not to you, it was to me, because of people who I talk to through ministry and such. Man, before marriage, this is a very active thing, and after marriage, this is one of those moments when I'm having discussions with people. I promise you, this is always on the table. We can talk about everything else. We can talk about what's the other problems, but this issue is always on the table when I'm going through marriage counseling. Always.
So has it changed a lot over the years now that we're bombarded with all of this information and kids, younger kids now? I mean, even though it's different now, it's still the same. We listen, this is funny, Brandon might remember this, might not. Yesterday, we were going to meet some friends in Amarillo.
Yeah.
And I asked her, what do you want to listen to? Well, she didn't answer. She hadn't said. And so I picked the 70s, just for the fun of it. And, I don't know how many songs in the 70s that, they don't come out and say it like a rap song does now, or like songs do now that have the E by them on their album music that are explicit, but they're just as explicit in the 70s as they are now. We listen to Marvin Gaye. Let's get it on. I mean, how else do you say it?
Barry Odell. It hasn't changed, right? The temptation, the lust, and all of those things are all there, right? Even Jesus we're going to look at a passage in just a second that Jesus even talks about that, right? And so it hasn't changed, but what have they been bombarding with? There's just more avenues to be bombarded by, right? We're going back to that cell phone-ish thing. You can type in a couple of words and you can be in a place where you don't want to be and where they don't need to be. When I told you the statistics, which blew me away, that a very high percentage of pornography today that people are addicted to is less than around 10 years old. If that doesn't just pick, who has a kid like 10 years old? 11. Anybody in here? Are we all too old? How old is your kid? 12? Buck? Little Buck? Hank. What do we normally call him? Hank. I thought I had a nickname. Sorry, I thought I had a nickname. My mind's going somewhere. I'm about. Oh, Little Buck Hank. That's Little Hank. Got you. Okay. Sorry. So everybody knows who Hank is, right? 12 years old. Huge. That generation, that age group, there's addictions, problems. on this subject.
Well, he tells a story in the book, which is, Raymond pointed out to me just now, which is exactly right. How we when you're in the privacy of your home and you're in the bathroom, you're getting out of the shower, she's getting out of the shower. It's two whole completely different things on how you handle it. It talks about how, the guy is all eyes and when she's getting out of the shower, it's just completely different. And when you get out, she's saying, get on the floor, man, get on the bath bag, or do this, or do that.
You're dripping everywhere. Yeah. I haven't heard that ever. Yeah. I mean, so, when he talks about how sexuality is different for guys. There's two main reasons and two different things. It's page 251 through 253. But the two things that we see sexuality very different as men and women, well, you just touched on it now, Barry, so we'll go with it. We are very visual. Very, very visual. So when you look at Proverbs chapter 5 and verse 19, he uses this in the book. Let her breast fill you with all the times with delight. Be intoxicated always in her love. It's interesting, he's talking to men there and not to women. Right? So it's not the other way around. He's saying there in wisdom literature, we need to listen to this. He's trying to teach us. And God understands that we are very visual stimulated people as men, okay? And the second thing, we also have a need for sexual release. Man, I did not want to talk about this at all. But when you go to 1 Corinthians, he uses this passage in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. We looked at it before, but he talks about it here. There's a need for both parties, but 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 5, it says, do not deprive one another, except perhaps by agreement for a limited time, that you may be devoted yourself to prayer, but then come back together again, so that Satan may not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. So he's interesting here. He says, hey, don't deprive one another, but there might be a time when you need to, and that's an agreement between the two parties. So number one, I'm not saying that guys are the only ones that need sex. That it goes both ways, right? But he says, don't deprive one another. There might be a time, but then come back together again. What's the reason at the end of verse 5?
So you're not tempted.
So I'm not tempted, right? What are you thinking when you hear these things? I'll go. It's fine. Dallas?
I know especially now, and every couple, every person is different, but I do feel like especially for women in the whole wider culture, career first. And
Okay.
these women are focusing on their career and getting college degrees and X, Y, and Z's. And then that doesn't mean, and we're getting married much, much later. And I'm not saying we need to be desperate and get married as fast as we can, but everybody's getting married later. But those desires aren't being fulfilled until you get married. So I feel like there are so many people pursuing that career and getting their sexual desires fulfilled at the same time. So I'll just push off marriage because I can still I can have the best of both worlds. And maybe our part is encouraging the importance of finding purposeful. If your desire is to get married, then Michael and I talked about that while when we were dating. Be the person you want to marry. So if you're a teenage, whoever young man or woman, and you want to get married, start practicing and start being that person that you want to marry.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
I got married when we were 25, which is old compared to what it used to be. But I don't know that we teach Quentin, he's going to marry a strong Christian woman. If he wants to get married, he can tell you that. So I don't know that we focus on marriage when we're young as much as we should.
Mm-hmm.
Just let it be I get that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're doing good. You're doing good.
I also, we make this subject taboo, even in marriage.
Yeah.
You have to talk about it early stage. When you first get married, you don't have to talk about it. It's a little easier. But you start having kids and the woman's body changes and the time changes and the attention to the man providing for the family and the woman taking, the time is crazy.
Yeah.
And then you come back and you realize we got to fix it. So by the time you're seeing people in marriage counseling and they're saying it's an issue, the those conversations had to be an open, two-way street of all the details of what each one needs, what they see, what they need to see. I mean, all of those things, and we make the language so taboo when in marriage, that's where it should take place.
Yeah, so when you look at sex and sexuality and intimacy, let's use that word because it's a little easier. Within marriage is the most beautiful thing that you can have. What happens when you have sex or when you're intimate with your partner? What are some of the bodily things that happen in your mind? There's these endorphins that are released. Do you know what they're called? Anybody? Do you know? Oh, side joke. Hey, that's cool. I got it. What's that? Dopamine. It's dopamine and serotonin, and these are the things that make you happy. But these are these hormones that are released during the intimate act that will connect you with that other person. Did you know that? It's actually how God created us. How do you connect at a deeper level with your spouse? God understood that is through this intimacy that we have with one another, and it's incredible. Absolutely incredible within the marriage, right? And so we need to understand, and I'm glad that he actually talks about this subject, that you're right, Diane, we are scared of talking about this subject, but this should be the safest place to talk about this subject. Because God created it. God created it for us in our marriage to bring us closer together. There's not another time that I'm as close to my wife as I am at that moment. And so, and it's a beautiful thing, but we also need to understand, especially when he's talking about this for the guy's side, that, hey, I look at it differently probably than my wife does. Okay? I'm a visual person. All right? I can fall into lust very quickly. What does Jesus say? How does he say it? Do not lust after another woman because what? You've already... Yeah, your mind is already gone. Why doesn't he say that for the other way? It's kind of interesting. But you're not supposed to lust for another person. But because I'm visual, and that's going to stimulate me. But here, I want to say something else as well. When he talks about the need for the sexual release is absolutely important. I do not, and I am not tempted with lust if I can be intimate with my wife. I don't know. I don't understand it. That's how it works for me. But when I and my wife are intimate, I'm not looking anywhere else. Right? He uses a phrase in the book, only have eyes for me, right? My wife wants me to have only eyes for her. Hey, I only want my eyes for her. But then we can't go with what? With no sexual relations. It has to be a part of that. Because it is a big part of my relationship and who I am as a guy. Anybody want to jump in on this and just kind of save me a little bit, or I can drown a little bit more?
We talk to our kids growing up, we've got girls and we've got boys, and girls don't understand teenage boys, and teenage boys don't understand teenage girls. And it's the same thing with adults. We talked about the woman's need for communication and 15 hours a week.
15 hours a week?
That's a lot of hours. You know?
I learned
I'm
something.
not asking for 15 hours of sex a week, right?
Go ahead, sorry.
It's one of those things where as women think about the need to connect with words.
Right.
You talk about the chairs and facing each other and that level of connection.
Yes.
With guys, that's a lot of how that happens. Not really, I mean, it's kind of like Freaky Friday. If you could put yourself in each other's shoes for a day or a week,
Yeah.
it would probably do miracles for marriage.
Absolutely.
Just see how they think and react and feel.
Well, he even talks about that in the book, right? He said, what would it be like if your husband didn't talk to you for 3 days, 7 days, a month? Well, ladies, you wouldn't like that at all, right? That's what is he telling you? I don't care about you, right? But on the other side of that, when those sexual needs are not being met, we're actually having the same thoughts. Do you find me attractive anymore? Do you respect me? Do you love me? Why don't you want to be intimate with me? And it has all of these things, and we start questioning who I am, my self-confidence, my marriage? Is it falling apart because she doesn't want to be close to me? And it goes on and on. Do you see do you see that? How going back to what you're saying, that words here, we need to understand on the other side, for guys, this is a very big need for us. Monk.
It also goes back to filling each other's tanks.
Thank you. That's where I wanted to end.
The more I fill my wife's tank,
Yeah.
and her need for love, the more that she is willing to participate in that.
Yeah, I will quote from someone. I won't tell you his name until the end. But he said to me, we were talking, I think this topic came up earlier in one of our classes, and he came up to me and he goes, if you take care of her needs, she'll take care of your needs. And but he also talks about in the book, and it's hard to read, even though there are moments when he is not filling those needs, I mean, there's a distancing there. And so it's a conversation that you need to have, and I think it's really good that we understand one another and where we come from on this.
Real, because even the words.
How do we what? I'm sorry?
That's real, because even the words we use, intimacy and beautiful and blah, 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 that, I mean, we build it up in our mind like a TV show.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is just sex. And so you have to be real with each other, because it doesn't have to be candles and a dinner and everything else. I mean, especially if you've got 4 kids under the age of 12. So, I mean, and so you have to be real with each other.
I agree. Be real. And I think that's what, if you look at everything that we have been talking about for a long time now, and we're coming to an end, when you understand this, when you look at this is teaching us to be fully open with one another. Understanding, guys, couple, and ladies, chairs. You know, if we can understand this is when it opens up to reality, right? Do you remember the one comment in the book when the daughter calls the mom and she's griping and complaining, and what's the mother's response to her daughter? Do you remember?
Well, have sex with your husband.
Yeah, what are you doing? And it doesn't take a whole lot of time. Sometimes it's just sex. You know, just get her done.
But how many of us in here would have that conversation with our kids?
I'm hoping never to have that conversation with my kid. But here's you know what? Let's did it go yet? The bell ring? I think we need this is how we're going to end. We need to learn how to have those conversations and to be very open with our next generation, because I promise you they're learning it from somewhere. And if they're learning it from movies, TikTok, Snapchat, and their friends in their locker room, well, good luck. I think moms and dads need to step in and talk about sex with their kids, not just how it works, but what it means between the two people biblically, and why they should wait until marriage, and show those benefits to them of why you should wait. And it's okay to be, what does it mean? What's the word I'm thinking of? If you never had sex before marriage, you are virgin. Before, and the benefits of that. I can't believe I forgot that word out of everything else. But the benefits of it. We need to have those open conversations, 100%. Good luck with those. All right. Love you guys. Let's get out of here. Second bell went. Go get your babies.
The class title on the board back there.
I have no idea what that is.